Well, I suppose it's fair to say this administration is sort of mid-term. You've got elections coming up in May 2027. A bit of a rough ride, Kevin. Lots of people out there moaning about bollards and livable neighbourhoods, seagulls, potholes. I see you've appointed Councillor Manda Rigby to be in charge of putting out some good news stories. Is this the beginning of a charm offensive by your administration?
Well, I wouldn't describe that we're in the middle of the administration at the moment. We were elected in 2019, Richard, with a very ambitious...
Since the last election?
Since the last election, yeah. So I would describe us as 6 years in, 6 years into administration that's very bold and progressive. You're always going to have people that are a little bit unhappy. But we go to your point about the bollards. We had a huge amount of noise about the security, city centre security that was going in. But if you look at the incidents that have happened around the world recently, and you had the most recent horrific incident in Liverpool, then we were ahead of the curve on that. And I'm very pleased that a bold Liberal Democrat administration put those security measures in. And we're thinking ahead. We're still being very ambitious. We're one of the greenest authorities in the country. You just look at the Milton Quarter regeneration as well. The city's absolutely booming. We can go back to last weekend. We had the Ladies' Day up at the racecourse. We had the Robbie Williams concert. We had 50-odd thousand people out for the rugby celebrations, which was amazing. There was also a particular favourite of mine, which was the gin festival in the city as well. And we also had loads of people bringing their children to come to university in Bath for the open day. So that is a city that is thriving.
You mentioned Bath Rugby. The turnout, the response pretty well guarantees them their planning application, I would have thought.
Couldn't possibly comment. The executive it has no responsibility over the planning department. No.
Going back to the appointment, though, of Manda to be in charge of putting out some good stories, I mean, that's a conscious move on your administration's behalf.
Yeah, well Councillor Rigby is an exceptionally talented individual, and being a Liberal Democrat caring administration, listening to people and understanding their concerns is at the forefront of everything we do. So it's an area that I feel that the council has needed to improve its communications, and I'm hoping that Manda, with an exceptional team, will be able to do that a lot better than we have been doing in the past.
I mean, she's been in charge of highways for what, 4 years? Mm-hmm. And to my knowledge, because of things like bollards and livable neighbourhoods, she's had to put up with an awful lot of hate mail, and I think in some instances threatening mail. Is that maybe one reason why she swapped jobs?
Absolutely not. We move people around because of their talent. But on that point specifically, Richard, I would say that my job as leader of the council is to attract good talent to become councillors to represent their communities. And online in particular, particularly female councillors, get a huge amount of abuse. Hidden people behind pseudonyms feel that it's acceptable to throw comments about councillors, and it's just not. And it's really difficult for somebody like me and for other parties as well to attract real talent because of that horrible noise they get on social media. But I'm very proud of the 40 councillors we have in the Liberal Democrat Party. They work exceptionally hard despite that occasional abuse from a minority of residents.
Let's talk about some good news then. What good news do you have for us today?
Well, we have loads of good news. But the one thing I'm particularly pleased about, which most people have already heard about, is the Fashion Museum development. Hopefully we'll get that open by the end of 2029. We had the amazing news of the Heritage Lottery funding, which is £700,000. We should get another £7.2 million by the end of the year from them, if all goes well, which should put us in line to basically putting together the foremost fashion museum in Europe. And it should be up there, the same standards as the V&A, and will be an amazing new attraction for the city of Bath, which kind of draws me on to the tourist tax, which I'd like to talk about as well, Richard.
Okay. Can I, just before we go on to tourist tax, just refer to the Fashion Museum Bath one more time? You're very enthusiastic about it. Do you honestly think the people of Bath are? I don't know how well the open days have been going, but I've had several comments saying, oh, it's not that well publicised. I went and did a piece with Rob Campbell, Heritage Services. He put it out on his social media. I got to say, I haven't had that many hits on that interview.
I think it's because people are so aware of it already. It is the talking point of all the fashion centres around the world. You go to London, you talk to people at the V&A, even people in Milan and New York are talking about this amazing new project that we've got going on. So it is on the tips of the tongues of everybody that's important. There is a current process which is, I don't think there's another museum of its type in the world that's done this, where from the very onset, we really want to know what the people of Bath and North East Somerset, the local residents, feel they need from the museum. So if you take part in the survey that's online at the moment, you'll be part of creating something which is world class in your own city. And that is a unique opportunity that doesn't come across very often.
You've borrowed 20 million, so that's a bit of a gamble.
It's not a gamble, no. If you're creating something which is so world class, one of the things I decided at the very onset of this project, if you're going to do it, it has to be 5-star plus. That's what Bath requires and it's what Bath needs, and I'm committed to doing that.
Okay, let's talk tourist tax. We seem to be doing quite well. I don't know whether we have as many Americans as we normally do, but let's leave politics out of it. Are we any nearer actually introducing a tourist tax, which I'm sure is money you would love to put in the coffers?
So tourist tax is at the forefront of the conversation I'm having at the moment. I'm going to Liverpool's Local Government Association conference in a few weeks' time, where I'll be talking to leaders from Oxford, York and Cambridge, where we'll be looking at putting a joint letter to the government. As your listeners will know, Wales and Scotland already have these powers. There's places like Manchester that brought in a bid plus, which isn't quite working as well because that goes straight back to businesses rather than coming to local authorities. It's not fair that Wales and Scotland have these powers. I should be working very closely with other leaders and regional mayors. I've discussed this with Helen, the new regional mayor. She's fully supportive of it. Places like Bath do need a tourist tax. We can invest that tourist tax into the place. So that is local streets, keeping it clean, improving the parks, everything that tourists love to use, but is also beneficial to residents as well.
Is our Lib Dem MP going to be useful in that?
Exceptionally useful. She's lobbying people behind closed doors. It is something that I feel the Treasury and the government, it would be an own goal for them not to support a tourist tax. But the cities that I'm talking to in the next few weeks, they punch above their weight internationally. They bring in billions of pounds to the UK economy. Why not help us support that addition to the Treasury?
Well, we're talking about charges and going back to things like livable neighbourhoods. You're often, your administration, accused of just shifting the traffic around. Why not be brave? And maybe this needs legislation as well. And just introduce, as London has, a congestion charge so that everybody, apart from the disabled and taxis and buses, would be charged for driving into the city. Isn't that the only way you reduce volume?
Well, there's no current plans for the Liberal Democrats to introduce charges for cars. However, it is worth looking into government legislation as how we could possibly look at charging cars that are going transigent through the city, and particularly charging vehicles that may be driving from east to west. I have no plans to charge residents that live in Bath and North East Somerset for the cars to drive in and out of Bath.
Yeah, when you talk about crossing the city east to west, a lot of parents have to do that, don't they? Taking kids to school, because it seems good schools, or the majority of schools, let's say, are on the other side of the city to where they live.
We have exceptional park and ride systems, and I would encourage, and I am encouraging all schools, particularly those private schools, to put on their own private bus systems to collect kids so parents don't have to sit in traffic. And that frees up the roads for people who genuinely need to get about in their cars.
What about party houses and Airbnbs? How could we control them, or indeed tax them, to bring in a little bit of revenue?
Well, we go back to the tourist tax. That would involve Airbnbs and party locations as well. However, we have brought in as Liberal Democrats the 10% HMO system. So if you've got an area which is already saturated with HMOs, automatically within our current planning system, you will not be granted to change your house into a home of multiple occupancy. And that's in place at the moment. There are large pockets of the south of Bath in particular where if you wanted to transform your house, you just wouldn't be able to.
That's good to hear. I'm hearing rumours about some policy change with public conveniences. Am I chasing down a dark tunnel which comes to an abrupt end, or am I hearing something of note?
That's a bit of a loud flush, I think. Yeah. No, we're committed to enhancing our public toilets in Bath in particular. However, we do face an upward battle, if I'm going to be honest. There is a culture of misuse of public toilets, and often the police, because of under-resource from central government, their reaction is to quickly close a public toilet for health and safety reasons. We're working very closely with them. We're working very closely with private companies as well to see how we can get around that and support those vulnerable people as well, and also make sure those public toilets stay open.
Well, we have that issue at Waitrose, don't we? That there were toilets on the ground floor, but they had to close them because of vandalism and drug misuse, which is a great shame because the loos by the library, the ladies' queue, and I think sometimes the men have to too. The facilities are very poor.
Yeah, well, part of the Fashion Museum complex as well, there'll be a huge public realm area, and within there, there'll be a big public convenience location next to the shop. So that's our commitment as a local authority. But we are working very closely with those private companies to make sure those conveniences are safe, and working very closely with the police. As you say, these are very vulnerable individuals that are unfortunately creating some significant antisocial behaviour issues in those public conveniences, and we have to work with our partners to ensure that those areas are safe.
Okay. Dare I mention a couple of sort of historical blots on the landscape, going back to the old Kes building in Broad Street. I continually say to you and your colleagues, why not compulsory purchase it? You know, it's gone on for 30 years or longer. And the other thing is, everybody wants to know, is the fragrance group still going ahead with transforming the old Min into a hotel? You know, it's another grand building which it seems to be derelict.
Yeah. So the Kes situation, there's very few things, Richard, as you know, that frustrate me. The Kes building is one of those things. We have a company there that's sitting on that as an asset for over 25 years, as you've said. We've had multiple communications with them, right to the top and down, and they're refusing to develop them. We get to a point where legally we push them to a certain degree, and compulsory purchase plans are very complicated
And expensive.
And expensive. And if they maintain an historic building to a certain degree, it's very difficult for us to compulsory purchase them. So where we were trying to manoeuvre around that situation with the roof, they have fixed the roof to a certain degree. So therefore, we need to look at it from a different angle. But I can promise you and your listeners that we are doing everything we can to transform that building. It is ridiculously frustrating, and unfortunately, they hold the majority of the cards.
But you're not ruling out a CPO?
Absolutely not. No, we are actively pushing the company, telling them that we will compulsory purchase if you don't move forward. And they are just doing just enough to prevent us from legally doing that at the moment. They are a very frustrating partner to work with. They are probably the most frustrating partner to work with in the city. And that's me being very diplomatic, Richard.
They're an interesting family. Let's leave it there. What about the old men?
So that is a different kettle of fish, because they are committed to developing that site. Why wouldn't you? One of the largest hotel companies in the world, they've committed to invest into that property. They have done some work internally recently that obviously people can't see. I was aware of that. And as far as I'm aware, they are still fully committed to getting that sorted by, well, they've said by 2027, but that we'll watch this space.
Oh dear, I'll have to stick that in my diary for 2 years' time. Okay, looking ahead, I'm nearly at the end to let you go. What would you say to the people of Bath about your administration and why they should stick with you? I mean, they've got to stick with you for the next 2 years because they can't do anything about it. But do you think you'll still be here after 2027 in charge? I mean, you haven't got a single, I'll whisper it, councillor here, but you're quite likely to face quite a few reform candidates when it does come to those 2027 May elections.
Well, we're working ridiculously hard, and there's some things we're exceptionally proud of. Bath and East Council is regarded as one of the greenest administrations in the entire UK. We're leading the nation on some of our reforms there. We have our recycling centre in Keynsham. We're also redeveloping the new one in Bath to the same standard. We have really ambitious projects for the city. Going back to the points I mentioned about the centre of the city, some people have said that the Liberal Democrats have killed the centre of Bath. If you just go back to last weekend, I don't think Bath has been this prosperous and successful since the Georgians rebuilt it. That is how successful the city of Bath and North East Somerset is at the moment. And I'm really, really proud of that. Why people should vote for us? There's change in the air. You are right. There is a big threat. The world faces a situation where people can lie, they can misinform people, and just basically they are divisive, and some of them are nasty. Liberal Democrats are a caring, thoughtful process that look at detail, they look at facts, and they'll make those decisions for you based on that. But we're forward thinking. We're not a negative party. We're a party that's hopeful for a better future for everybody, and that's why people should be voting for us.
Kevin Guy, thank you.
Thank you.